What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome to the first grades video, post-game grades video on the channel for the Philadelphia Eagles. I was going to get the newest episode of the Raiders to come out. I had some technical difficulties with basically how we're going to handle the Antonio Brown situation. I've been playing a lot of Borderlands 3 on the weekend, so it didn't work out. The Raiders will be out tomorrow. We'll probably actually might have a doubleheader so we can get that out to you. So today's upload, I was just kind of waiting to do the post-game grades as the Philadelphia Eagles fall 24-20 to the Atlanta Falcons. First off the rip, man, every time the Eagles and Falcons play, it seems like it comes down to like the final drive, the final play of the game. That felt like a playoff caliber game. I mean, maybe both quarterbacks didn't play exceptionally well, but it was one of those games where like the defense was making plays. It wasn't like quarterbacks were just throwing check down. It wasn't like the most of like the Rams-Saints games, for example. The Rams-Saints game was hyped up to be this big time game. And then there were some big injuries that really derailed that game. This game, especially on the Eagles, we had massive injuries. I've never seen, I remember they went into halftime, the Philadelphia Eagles. We had no Alshon Jeffrey. We had no Deshaun Jackson. Both those guys got hurt on like the first drive. Dallas Goedert, who is, C4 is mentioning like the backup tight end to Zach Ertz. Dallas Goedert is a huge part of our game plan. Dallas Goedert is almost like he's a starter. He's a legitimate starter. Philly is going to run a lot more 12-man. That's almost like our base personnel. So we're missing our three starting wide receivers, including, Goedert as a glorified receiver, even though he's a great blocker. Timmy Jernigan missed significant time. Sidney Jones missed some time. And then you look at Atlanta, I don't think they missed anyone. I think Atlanta was out there full strength the entire game. And Philly was a Nelson Aguilar drops galore touchdown away from winning that game. So the fight was incredible. It's a tough loss. I mean, no loss is a good loss. I'm not going to lie. When we were looking at the Eagles' schedule, this game was a toss-up. It was 50-50, I thought, coming into it because it always comes down to the final moment. Philly usually contains and keeps Julio Jones out the red zone, out the end zone. And today, I mean, that last play, that was a great play. That was a great play call. I'm not going to even fault. Usually I'm one of the first person to say, oh my God, Jim Schwartz, absolute butt cheeks. That was a terrible call. He was dialing the blitz. How many times are we just like, oh, Jim Schwartz is too passive with soft coverage and stuff? He was dialing at the blitz, and he went all in, and that was actually a tremendous play call. Jake Matthews just destroyed Avonte Maddox, who, I mean, I'm not going to say it would have been automatic because Julio Jones is insane, but Avonte, if that big-time tackle or blown-up pancake by Jake Matthews didn't happen, there's a good shot that Avonte Maddox tackles Julio Jones for a TFL, and that's game over. That's donezo. But yeah, man, it's a tough game, and it's like one of those things too. It's like the injuries happen in game. Philly has all right options at wide receiver. Mac Hollins was a preseason star like 2 years ago. He struggled with injuries. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was a second-round pick, lots of upside. But the fact that Alshon and Deshaun Jackson and Dallas Goedert all got hurt like during or right around game time, that just, you pretty much have to your game plan gets thrown out the window. Philadelphia had definitely ways that they wanted to target and pick at the Atlanta Falcons. And literally within the first drive, Doug Peterson had to be like, okay, throw that in the garbage. And they had to try to find a way to overcome and adapt. And it was just a little too much for them to overcome because Atlanta, like I said, Matt Ryan played as bad, probably worse than Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz at least had kind of an excuse because he was missing all of his playmakers. Matt Ryan didn't have an excuse. Philly's defense made plays. Matt Ryan was making garbage throws. Matt Ryan still had Julio Jones. He still had Mohamed Sanu. He still had Calvin Ridley. Carson Wentz, number one target was Nelson Aguilar. He had Mac Hollins, I think, got the most targets actually on the team outside of Nelson Aguilar. So, it was a tough loss for the Philadelphia Eagles, but a loss that I don't feel garbage about. I was like, my heart was pounding. I was like, man, if they come back and win this game, there's no way they should win this game. They started out incredibly slow, like they did against the Redskins, like they did 90% of the games last year. I have no idea what's going on. I mean, when Josh McCown came in, this is like the biggest tell for me right now, and it's maybe the most frustrating thing about the Carson Wentz era, is that the game plan, like when Nick Foles comes in, when Josh McCown comes in, it's like they simplify the playbook and try to maximize the strengths of our skill position players, what we have out there. And when Carson Wentz comes in, it's like, it's kind of like the best way to describe it. It feels like Doug Peterson has like the safe playbook that's like high percentage, super effective. And then he goes to like super hard difficulty, all Madden difficulty for Carson Wentz when it comes to the playbook. And I don't want to use that as a fault against Carson Wentz, like, oh, he can't handle the big boy playbook. But it just feels like, especially with these slow starts, you're trying to make Carson Wentz throw back shoulder fades to wide receivers that definitely have been practicing with the twos all week. He tried to take two ridiculous passes to Mac Hollins that he had no right to be trying to throw. And that was the play call. Like, it just feels like, and then McCown came in, went 3 of 5 for 24 yards, got the team moving, got the team into the red zone. And you saw with Nick Foles, man, the entire game plan changed. I don't know what it is exactly, because it's definitely not like one of those things, oh, Carson Wentz is not playing well and the backups come in. They just play better. Carson Wentz is holding. The play calling is like night and day when these backups come in. Give that play calling, give that playbook to Carson Wentz. And then, obviously, in the first half, Carson Wentz was bad. Carson Wentz was bad. The play calling was worse. I mean, how are you going to have Carson Wentz sit back there and throw bombs when you're missing all your wide receivers? It's like you didn't adjust the game plan. I mean, the Falcons' defense, run defense, actually played fairly well, but generally speaking, they are a weak run defense. They're small. They are a very small front seven. So that's when you just say, oh, Philly has a great offensive line. We get a brand new power back in Jordan Howard. Let's just run the ball up the gut and see what happens. No, we're going to continue to make Carson Wentz say, drop back, throw the ball, force the ball, see what you can do with no Deshaun Jackson, no Alshon Jeffrey, no Dallas Goedert out there. So, Carson Wentz played bad, but the play calling was even worse. But in the second half, again, Eagles are like the most bipolar team, I think, in the National Football League. In the second half, Philly was lights out. Carson Wentz was outstanding. That touchdown drive that Carson Wentz led to get Philly their first lead of the game was amazing. That was 2017 Carson Wentz. QB sneaks, great dimes. And, trying to give Carson a grade, he was bad in the first half. The play calling was bad. Carson was bad. I'm going to have to ultimately give Wentz C+. And we gotta sort the first half, man. We can't keep starting out slow. And I think it's like one of those things where not only were we hindered by all the injuries, but it was still the same issue of starting slow. Like, even if we had like a normal game plan, we got back to at least being balanced in both halves of the game, who knows? Like, this game, amongst all the disadvantages that happened to Philadelphia in this game was winnable for Philly. And I think that is a credit to this squad that they were never truly out against a full-strength Atlanta Falcons team that came in, at least on the roster. Atlanta definitely has a playoff caliber team based on name value and talent. Obviously, with Matt Ryan being hot and cold, are they really a playoff team when all is said and done? They're definitely a fringe playoff team. Absolutely. They play in a tough division, but Cam Newton looks absolutely washed. Second place, first place, if Drew Brees is out for a significant time, could be up for grabs in that division. So the fact that Philadelphia hung in there and almost beat a playoff caliber team with easily like the worst injury a game of the year. It's only been 2 weeks, but there's been no team that has suffered the amount of injuries Philadelphia did in that game. It's not a loss that I'm going to be super upset about. I'm already ready to move on to next week. Hopefully, we get positive reports from the injury reports, and everyone's going to be Gucci for next week, or we only we at least get some of the weapons back. Carson Wentz will get a C+. Looking at the run game, full kudos to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta on tape, bad run defense. I mean, Deion Jones, I think, is probably the third best linebacker after Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly, but he's still kind of small, and they held no Philadelphia running back at over 3 yards per carry. Miles Sanders held in check. Jordan Howard held in check. We didn't even rush Darren Sproles a single time. So running game, they're getting an F. They did not make anyone miss. They only ran the ball 18 times with running backs. That's a little bit low. That's not the balance that you want to see. So, I mean, full kudos to Atlanta on that. They were a team that was gut check time. I like Dan Quinn. I like a Dan Quinn defense, a little bit of Florida Gators to it. And they definitely respond. So, I'm giving an F to the running backs. Running backs did not help out in a game where, they weren't really involved in the game plan much. But, they had some opportunities to take some of that pressure off Carson Wentz trying to force some of these passes to wide receivers that were just thrown into the game. And they didn't do it. They didn't make the most of it. Nelson Aguilar, 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown, but dropped, I don't know what that would have been, 43-yard touchdown? Like, it was a touchdown. If he catches that, he was gone. There's no one around him. It would have been a tutty. He would have had like a $150, 2 touchdowns. He still was okay. I'm going to give him B- because he did step up. He was the most talented wide receiver we had there. Zach Ertz, 8 catches, 72 yards. Mac Hollins, 5 for 50. I mean, would have been nice to get Arcega-Whiteside in there a little bit, but receivers, given the guys that were thrown in, give them a B. They were fine, but that ugly Nelson drops galore, it's going to come back to bite us. And, I mean, we got to be devil's advocate here. Let's be honest. Aguilar gets that touchdown. There's going to be $120 left on the play clock. Atlanta's going to get at least in field goal range to try a field goal attempt. So I'm not going to come out and say if Aguilar gets that touchdown, which, don't get it twisted, that would have been a touchdown, that Philly would have won that game. Jim Schwartz probably would have had some soft defense, reverted just ignored the fact that the blitz was working, and they would have had a Matt Bryant field goal. That's probably like a 48-yarder or something like that. I mean, he did shank a 50-yarder, but there would have been a lot of time left for Atlanta to make that play. But given the wide receivers, given the fact that I think Deshaun Jackson was out there for a drive. I didn't even see Alshon out there for a single drive. The guys did step up, especially Matt Collins and Aguilar minus that one play. Special teams was okay, was fine. Defensively, okay. Why can't we get sacks? What is going on? Fletcher Cox is playing well. I mean, he's never going to be a guy that's going to be double-digit sacks, but I don't know what's going on, man. Why aren't we getting pressures? Derek Burnett's not getting sacks. 2 games in against, I mean, they're good offensive lines. Atlanta has a good offensive line. Washington has a good offensive line, but we have a great defensive line. On, name value, this should be a defensive line that gets 3-4 sacks a game minimum, but we're struggling to get 1 or 2. So that pressure needs to help out the secondary, these corners. This team is built around getting pressure and finishing pressure. And, I feel like we're getting pressure. I feel like Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, all these guys are affecting the pass. We saw it a lot with the rush throws from Matt Ryan tonight, but we're not finishing. We're not getting sacks. So that's definitely something I want to see. We got good picks here. Sidney Jones had a good game, even though, of course, another one of the guys that had to go in and out with injury throughout. Darby had a pick. He was getting torched. He was getting beat like a drum. Looked like Byron Maxwell 2.0 out there. Nate Gary had I don't know what Matt Ryan was doing. That might be the worst interception of Matt Ryan's career. I think they said Brandon Graham might have got his hand on it or something like that. But Sendejo got a sack. But, I mean, ultimate defense was, they were fine. I would give this defense ultimately outside of Ronald Darby and Sendejo, A minus. I'll give him a B plus. I'll give him a B plus ultimately because Darby was getting beat and they weren't really giving him much safety help. And when they did give him safety help, it was the worst safety on the team. And Sendejo, it was, I don't know, man. But Jim Schwartz, generally speaking, actually had a pretty good game. And I think ultimately what it came down to was Carson Wentz, when crunch time came down to it, didn't have the playmakers that, Matt Ryan just dumped it off to Julio Jones. Carson Wentz didn't have a Julio Jones. I'm not going to compare Deshaun Jackson or Alshon Jeffrey to Julio Jones, but those are Carson Wentz's playmakers. And when Matt Ryan needed his playmaker to make a play, they had him available. Carson Wentz needed his playmaker to make a play. We had to go to our third playmaker, Nelson Aguilar, and he did what Nelson Aguilar does from time to time, not nearly as frequently as he used to, but he dropped the ball. That combined with the slow start in the first half, which is without doubt the biggest issue the Philadelphia Eagles got going for them, that is ultimately what led to the defeat. But like I said, man, it's not a bad defeat from the Eagles. We got Detroit next week. Should be a kind of tough game, but we're off the road. We're back at home. I feel good. I feel Detroit. That's a nice bounce back game. Hopefully we're healthy because they're going to bring it. Hopefully Darby just doesn't want to get toast by like Kenny Galladay or something like that next week. But generally speaking, Philly today, we'll give them a C plus. They showed great fight again. It's just the first half, man. What I don't even want to watch the first half of our games anymore. I just want to turn to the second half because that's when Philly actually starts to look and play like the team that won the Super Bowl. Fire Mike Groh, maybe? Hashtag fire Mike. Is Mike Groh the reason the game scripts look terrible in the first half and then it takes Doug Peterson in the second half to start doing adjustments or something like that? Is that what's going on? I'm not exactly sure, but Philly falls to 1-1. Luckily, whatever. Dallas is top of the division right now, but when you got the cupcakes of you played the Redskins, who Philly beat, and then pretty much similar results. Washington kind of kept in both games ultimately when all is said and done against both Dallas and Philly, but we look at the results. But they played the Giants. Giants aren't going anywhere. They're not a playoff caliber team, but Dallas is top. I think Philly's a great matchup for Dallas this year. And hopefully, while Dak Prescott is playing well, Jerry pays him $39 million a year and then ruins the team for the next 6-7 seasons. That would be awesome. But that's neither here nor there. Philly falls to 1-1. We got Detroit next week, and hopefully we can bounce back, get to 2-1. I can't wait to see Dallas too. They got Miami next week. That's going to be a big challenge. So that does it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching. Like I said, Raiders video will be dropping tomorrow. I've been enjoying some. If you guys like Borderlands, I might have something cool on stream very soon. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.